It was not in the past few moments that I saw all these things. Though I saw more of them in the past moment than might be supposed. But I saw that everything within my view which ought to be quite that had been quite long ago and had lost it last
Lustre.
last track and was faded and yellow. I saw that the breed within the bridal dress
Bridal dress, yeah.
had with her
Withered.
without like the dress and like the flowers and had no brightness but the brightness of her sunken eyes. I saw that the dress had been put upon the rounded figure of a young woman, and that the figure upon which it now huge lost, hung lost, and shrunk to skin and bone. What is it? Said the lady at what is it? Said the lady at the door. Thief, ma'am, am. Thief, ma'am, thief, Mr. Kamlacho's boy, ma'am, come to play. Came to play. Come nearer. Let me look at you. Come close. It was when I stood before her, avoiding her eyes, that I took note of the surrounding object in detail, and saw that her watch had stopped at 20 minutes to 9, and that a clock in the room had stopped at 20 minutes to 9. Look at me, said Miss Havison. You are not afraid to a woman who has never seen the sun since were, you were born. I regret to state that I was not afraid to telling the
Enormous lie.
enormous lie uh, comprehended in the answer no.
Right. Okay, Reverend. Thank you. Right. So here you can say that it was not in the first few moments that I saw all these things. So he sees more of them in the first moments than might be supposed. So what is the idea here, Reverend? It was not in the first few moments that I saw all these things. So that means he was going to this place, several times after this moment. And then he saw all these things in all these different visits. But I saw more of them in the first moments than might be supposed. But he could see almost all of these things in his first visit because all of these things were very new to him. So he was very observant because of that. He could observe all these things, right? Yeah. And yes, I saw that everything within my weave which ought to be white had been white long ago. So very ironic and sarcastic. Now they have turned yellowish. They had been white long ago. So not now, right? Yeah. And had lost its luster. What is meant by luster, reverence? Shine. It's luster. Lustrous eyes. Yes, luster, shine. So now they do not have this, reflecting shyness. Yeah, shine on it. So shine is gone. Was faded and yellow. Now it has turned yellow almost, right? Because of the time reference, yeah. Lost the shine and also, Yeah, and I saw that the bride within the bridal dress had withered like the dress. Withered means,
Flowers with
yeah, flowers wither like that, decaying reference. Yeah, decay. So decay is symbolized with all these. DECAY, decay. Yeah. And I saw that the bride within the bridal dress, yeah, we discussed that, like the flowers. So there's a simile as well, like the flowers. And had no brightness left but the brightness of her sunken eyes, right? So her eyes are sunken, almost like sinking in, right? Yeah. And also brightness is left. I saw that the dress had been put upon the rounded figure of a young woman. That means she was not very thin when she was young. That's why the dress is like withered. Now she has become thin. Maybe she's not eating much. Right? Yeah, can be because she's sad, right? And also because of her age. You may have seen when people get old, most of the people they become lean, right? They become unable to eat. Yeah, and she's unable to eat not only because of her old age, but because she's sad. She's a classic case of, you can say, depression, right? Yeah, classic case, not just the depression that people have nowadays. A very kind of a strong sense of depression. Yeah. Yeah, lack of appetite. Yes. So depression has either lack of appetite or it kind of made you stress eat or eating all the day. It can happen both ways. Yeah, either extremes. Yes. And when depressed people are taken to the psychologists, so they ask you to smile. Yeah, that's how they know that you have depression or not. So if you think that you have depression, don't worry, as long as you can smile, that you just think you have depression but you don't have it, right? They find it difficult to smile, right? Yeah, as in when you have not just the fake smiling as well, Reverend. It's like that people say that depression can look like this, right? Yeah, it is possible, but again when you have the depression like to a kind of a like a medically or clinically tested level of depression, you cannot even fake a smile, right? Yeah, so don't worry. If you have the ability to smile, you are not depressed, right? You can be stressed, true. Stress and depression are totally two different things, right? Okay. Where were we? Yes. Yeah. And then rounded figure of a young woman. So no appetite or maybe because of old age. So anyway, he's kind of, she's shrunken. He's seen this lady as a shrunken figure. And that the figure upon which it now hung loose, that's why the dress is loose, had shrunk to skin and bone. Right? Very skinny, very thin, right?
torturing herself.
Exactly, self-torture, Reverend. Yeah. Yes, self-torture, you can see there. And yes, once I had been, it's like a self-imposed punishment that is given to her by herself. And I had been taken to see some that part was not there in your book, right? Yeah. Okay, we can omit that. Waxwork, there that's where he refers to her as a waxwork, like a wax image, not someone real but surreal. Waxwork. WAX, wax, and work, Reverend. Waxwork. Yeah. And also, this part is missing in your book. He says, I should have cried out if I could. So he's kind of, at the verge of crying. He wants to cry. He's petrified. He's very much terrified that he wants to cry even. Right? Because he's this little kid. We feel very sympathetic about Pip at this point, right? Yeah. How he's manipulated and all. Who is it? Said the lady at the table. Pip, ma'am. But still, even though he's not kind of aware of class, he can identify that this is a lady, not a woman. He always refers to her as a lady. So class. He's already introduced to the idea of class. Pip, ma'am, Pip, Mr. Pumblechook's boy, ma'am, come to play. Come nearer, let me look at you, come close. It was when I stood before her, avoiding her eyes, that I took note of the surrounding objects in detail and saw that her watch had stopped at 20 minutes to 9. So, what is this time reference?
29 minutes?
Yeah, 20 minutes to 9.
Signifies the time Mr. Havisham received the letter.
Yes,
cancelling
yes.
her payment.
Yeah, so we cannot exactly say whether he was Mr. Havisham or not, Reverend. And maybe this is her maiden name, Havisham. It is not stated anywhere. So to kind of, it's very good, the point that you brought out, very good. But again, don't refer to him as Mr. Havisham when you write. It can be true, but we are not told that. Whether it is her maiden name or the name of this person. Right? Yeah. And yeah, so that is the time she was jilted, right? Cheated. That means she was kind of, left. Yeah, jilted.
Suddenly rejected.
Yeah, jilted. It's like, that she was cheated, literally. Yes, rejected and cheated. Yeah, so if you want, you can write that word as well, Reverend. Jilted. Jilted, jilted. Jilted, not G, J. Yes. And I regret to state that I was not afraid of telling the enormous lie, comprehended the answer. No, we forgot this part. Look at me, said Miss Havisham. You are not afraid of a woman who has never seen the sun since you were born. Again, you can say self-imposed punishment, Reverend, right? Yeah. So, symbol of darkness again, because sun symbolizes again natural right. Right, so natural lights, that means the natural presence is missing from her. She could have moved on, but she has not done it. So she has kind of taken this very tight grip on her life, on the incident that happened to her. That happens when you kind of a grip on something, when you have this hard grip. You are kind of it's like you are depending on something, right? She could have moved on, but she doesn't do that, not moving on from the point of breakup, right? Yeah, which is very sad. In all these mental hospitals, you can see people like this, right? Yeah, it is very sad. So then it shows how strong can a breakup be, right? How love can make people suffer, right? Yeah. Yes, and that's why Lord Buddha said Pemato Jayati Soko, right? Yeah, so this is a classic case of Pemato Jayati Soko, Miss Havisham, right? And then again you can see that people regrets to state that I was not afraid of telling the enormous lie, comprehended in the answer no. That means he was very much afraid of this lady, right? Almost like a ghost. But then he says no. So it's like that Pip has this tendency to tell lies. Yeah, tell lies because he was afraid of the outcome. Because of the way Mrs. Joe has ill-treated him. Yeah, if he says truth, he is in trouble. He was punished always. Yeah, it was kind of, almost to an extent that a little boy cannot bear. Like a little child like him cannot bear, he was punished. So because of that, he is afraid of being punished. That's why he's lying here. Yeah. And yes, do you know what I touch here? She said, laying her hands one upon the other on her left side. So usually the heart is, yeah, on the left side. That's why. And then yes, ma'am, it made me think of the young man. Can you remember the young man? The one who wanted to eat his liver and heart? The one with the convict? Yeah, so the convict kind of to make him petrified or terrified, he said that that there's this young man hidden with me. Yeah, he would come out and eat your heart and liver. Yeah, that's why he's reminded of it. So you can see that he thinks of Miss Havisham as a scary figure, even though she's not kind of physically violent. Yeah, she can be this scary figure as well. And also you can see how much of a trauma is there. inside Pip, very traumatic, right? Yeah, all these incidents have made him very traumatic. And it's good that, you know, this one, who is this person? Magwitch gave him the fortune because he has terrified this boy, right? Traumatized him. That's why he always get reminded of all these things. Yeah. What do I touch? Your heart broken, right? So very direct references to heartbreak here. And again, you can see what makes her the villain. Reverend allows the reader to sympathize with her. She literally becomes the villain of the story in a way, right, Miss Havisham? Yeah, no matter kind of, you know, even though she's old, she's this lady, she's representing the upper class, but she's the villain. She's the one who makes Pip who he is, right? Yeah. What destroys, kind of, you know, she has this effect of destruction. Yeah, imposing upon both Pip's and Estella's lives. Both the lives are destroyed, right? You can see that very clearly. And yes, and also you can see that Pip is also not in a mood to play. He's kind of, no, it is not humanly possible him to play and act normal at this moment, right? He's very much petrified. And she uttered the word with an eager look and with a strong emphasis and with a weird smile that had a kind of a boast in it, and a very weird kind of a very gothic smile, right? Again, you can see gothic idea. Afterwards, she kept her hand there for a little while and slowly took them away as if they were heavy. So her heart is heavy. That is the idea here, right? Very symbolic. And also the fact that she kind of, you know, places the hand on the left side, exactly referring to heart. Yeah. And also around, like, you know, one person from thousands can have their heart on the right side. Yeah, it's very kind of a rare case, but there can be people like that. Yeah. Okay, and then yes, I'm tired, said Miss Havisham. Is that part there, Reverend? I am tired. Yeah. Okay. I want diversion. She wants to divert her attention. She wants a change, literally. I want a diversion. Yes. And then the next part is very symbolic. I have done with men and women. So now I'm fed up of men and women. So what is she going to do now? Literally going to play with the life of a child, right? Not only one child, but two kids as well. Two children, right? Not just one, two. Yes. And then maybe you can read, Reverend. I can just go on reading and analyzing this, but the problem is some parts are missing in your book. I'm not sure whether these parts will be there. Is there this part? I think it will be considered by most.
Yes.
That part is there. And until no, ma'am, I'm very sorry for you. Yeah, yeah, up to now.
I think it will be considered by my most disposition reader that she could hardly have directed an unfortunate boy to do anything in the wide world more difficult to be done under the circumstance. I sometimes have fancies she went home, and I have a fancy that I went to see some play there, with an impatient movement of the fingers of her right hand. Play. For a moment, with the fear of my sisters walking me before my eyes, I had a desperate idea of studying round the room in the ensued character of Master Public
Pumblechook's.
chess card, but I felt myself so unequal to the performance that I gave it up and stood looking Miss Havisham in what I suppose she took for a
Dodged manner.
dodged
Yeah.
manner, in as much as she said when we had taken a good look at each other, are you sullen and obstinate?
Sullen and obstinate. Yeah. Okay, so that's okay, right, Reverend, thank you. So here you can say, I think it will be conceded. Conceded means, yeah, accepted or admitted, Reverend, yeah, accepted or admitted by my most, if you want you may write it down, my most disputatious reader. Disputatious means like argumentative. My most argumentative reader, even, right, would think that she could hardly have directed an unfortunate boy to do anything in the wide world more difficult to be done under the circumstances. So now the writer is directly addressing the reader. So this is a literary device, right? Direct addressing of the reader, right? It will be more considered by most, even my most argumentative reader would not think that she could do something unfortunate or something kind of, I would say something unnatural or unusual for this boy to do, right? Difficult. But here, what is this most difficult task that he has to do? I sometimes have sick fancies. So he admits that, she has sick fancies. That means, she has all these fancies which are not very natural. Not natural fancies. Unnatural stuff that should be done. And I have a sick fancy that I want to see someone play. So this is very symbolic, right? Figurative and foreshadowing as well. Not anti-foreshadowing, but foreshadowing, because this happens. She literally plays with this boy's life. Yeah, so there you can see a direct addressing of reader, Reverend. You may write it like that. Direct addressing of reader. Did we discuss about a stream of consciousness that day? Yeah, okay. Direct addressing of reader, Reverend. Let me write it here. Okay. And with an impatient movement of her fingers of her right hand. What does that show, Reverend? Symbolically, of as in physically, when you are kind of moving your hands like this. Impatient movement of hand. Can be legs or can be fingers. When someone is impatient like this always. Why is that? Why it's shivering and trembling? What does that show? It can happen in the real world in very natural circumstances as well. So you can relate to the status that you have shared yesterday about presentations. Right? Yeah. Like, shivering. Almost trembling. So what does that show? Nervousness? Yeah. So here also you can say it's much more than nervousness, a nerve condition. So you just only, tremble when you are doing something like that. But she is, always her hands are like, her nerves are not in the kind of, correct state. Yes. And play. So the word play is repeated, very symbolic. And why do you usually repeat something, Reverends? Emphasize, very good. So emphasis of this idea of playing and also foreshadowing, as I told you, very figurative. And for a moment, with the fear of my sisters working me before my eyes. So there you can see that he's always, there's this trauma that Mrs. Jo will appear somewhere and punish him, right? And also because of that idea, he thinks he will also be punished by Miss Havisham. Thinks adults would always punish him, and also because this is a lady, because with Joe he doesn't have such an experience. So he thinks that men are not kind of scary, but women can be scary because he has this bad experience with Mrs. Joe. So trauma, because the way that children comprehend things can be very different. That's why they say psychologically, if a kid smiles at you, I think I have told you this, if a kid smiles at you, never ever, forget to smile, because that would tarnish his or her perception about the world, about humanity. Likewise, children comprehend things in such a way, and that can be very different from what we think. What adults would, how adults would perceive the world can be very different from how kids would perceive the world. That can happen. Yeah. And yes, I had a desperate idea of starting round the room in an assumed character of Mr. Pumblechook's chase cart, right? So he thinks that he's playing this, chase cart of Pumblechooks. That means horse cart. So he he acts like that. Again, it shows that how stimulated he was by this chase cart. Again, you can refer to your assessment. He's impressed by this chase cart. That's why out of all these things that has happened to him, he chooses to play the character, yeah, Mr. Pumblechook, and also as if he's driving this chase cart. He could have played as the boy in the forge, but he didn't do that. Right? Yeah, that shows kind of, it is not visible but psychological. Psychologically, he was manipulated by that idea. Yes. And then I felt myself so unequal to the performance that I gave it up and stood looking at Miss Havisham in what I suppose she took for a dodged manner. Right? So dodged means, Reverend, being quiet without any response. Yeah, silent, quiet. Inasmuch as she said when we had taken a good look at each other, "Are you sullen?" Sullen means depressed. Yeah. Obstinate means disobedient, Reverend. Yeah. Yeah. No, ma'am, I'm very sorry for you. And again, you can see that he's very afraid of everything, right? We feel, as in the reader feels very sympathetic about him. Very sorry, I can't play just now. Yeah, if you complain of me, I shall get into trouble with my sister. Always petrified, traumatized. So I would do if I could, but it is so new here, so strange and so fine. A perfect example for your assessment. So new, so strange and so fine. So he's been introduced to this idea of the upper class. Yeah, and melancholy. So fine but so strange. Because he has not seen things like this before. Melancholy. Melancholy means very, sad. Yeah. I stopped, fearing I might say too much, or had already said it, and we took another look at each other. So you can see that they are being observed by, both the way around. Miss Havisham is observing Pip, and Pip is observing Miss Havisham. Yeah. And before she spoke again, she turned her eyes from me and looked at the dress she wore, and at the dressing table, and finally at herself in the looking glass. So new to him, she muttered, so old to me, so strange to him, so familiar to me. Again, this shows that she is saying this phrase like, so fine in a negative light. Can you feel that, Reverend? So fine, right? What is so fine to him is so difficult for her, so old to her, so strange to him, so familiar to me. That means she's not happy with her life. Again, gives you this idea that even stepping into the upper class is not equated to happiness, right? Yeah, so these upper class people are not happy here, but Pip fails to observe that. He fails to recognize that. Yes, call Estella. So they want that again he has to call Estella now. Miss Havisham and Pip both are in need of Estella right now. So it is like, it is very difficult for them to be in each other's company right now. So someone else is needed. So there's this awkward moment. Sometimes there's this awkward silence in between conversations, right? Yeah, it is there, right? Yeah. As she was still looking at the reflection of herself, I thought she was still talking to herself and kept quiet. So it is kind of very difficult to read Miss Havisham. Specifically for someone like Pip, specifically for someone who is very little like Pip, it is very difficult for him, right? Yeah. And then call Estella, she repeated, flashing a look at me. You can do that, call Estella at the door, right? So is the next part there, Reverend? To stand in the dark? Yeah, so up to now it was then I began to understand. I don't know whether that part is there.
Then I did.
Yeah. You may start from to stand, Reverend. I will stop you.
Then I did.
From to stand in the dark in a mistake.
Everything until
I will stop you, Reverend, because I'm not sure what do you have or not.
to stand in the dark in a mysterious passage of an unknown house, calling Estella to scornful young lady, neither visible nor responsive, and feeling it a dreadful liberty, so to roar out her name, was her light came along the dark passage like a star. Miss Harrison, beacon,
Beacon, Reverend. Her to come
her
close.
to come close, and took up a jewel from the table and tried its effect upon her fair young bosom and against her pretty brown hair. Your own one day, my dear, and you will use it well. Let me see your play cards with this boy. With this boy? Why? He's a common laboring boy. I thought I overheard Miss Havisham answer. Only it seemed so unlikely. Well, you can break his heart. What do you play, boy? Asked Estella of myself with the greatest disdain. Nothing but beggar, my neighbor Miss. Beggar him, said Miss Havisham to Estella. So we sat down to cards.
Okay, Reverend, thank you. Right. So this is also very symbolic, this part. So to stand in the dark in a mysterious passage. So he's literally dark in this, unknown, strange world of an unknown house. And bawling Estella to a scornful young lady, neither visible nor responsive. Bawling means, Reverend, it's like, shouting. Yeah. Crying out loud or shouting. So there may be a dictionary definition like crying, but it doesn't mean crying as if like, crying with tears. In this instance, crying out loud, that means shouting out loud, Estella, to a scornful young lady, neither visible nor responsive. And this is not only a reference to this moment, she is neither visible nor responsive throughout the novel, right? Yeah. And you can pronounce this as neither, it is not incorrect. It's just like, the language difference that we discussed. Yeah. Yeah, neither and neither, both are used. And feeling it a dreadful liberty, so to roar out her name. So usually, who do roar, Reverence? Is roaring done by... Yeah, it's like, lions. Yeah, lions roar. Roaring sound is, yeah. Okay, no, that's okay. It's done by... lions, yeah, because I am always asking you to refer to the context. Now you are always referring to the context. That's fine. And then feeling it a dreadful liberty, so to roar out her name. So he feels it's not something appropriate to do. It's a dreadful liberty. That means I do not have a right to call out her name. Something like that. So again, just like self-imposed maturity and self-imposed self-importance in Estella, you can see self-imposed what? Inferiority in Pip. Yeah. So this is in Estella. But with Pip you can say self-imposed inferiority. He thinks he is inferior. than all these others, right? Yeah. So he thinks of himself as someone very inferior. Yes. That's why he thinks that it is a dreadful liberty to call her name. Again, you can refer to the idea of class here. How he becomes very conscious of his own class. That's why he thinks of himself in such a way. Almost as bad as playing to order, right? So that means it's not only about playing, right? It's far better than even calling is identified as something inappropriate. So there's not even a question about playing. So he thinks both shouting and playing as something very inappropriate, because it is not kind of suitable for him to play with a lady like her. Yeah. But she answered at last, and her light came along the dark passage like a star. Again, right? You can say star, the name, symbolic name of hers. And then Miss Havisham beckoned. Beckoned here means Reverend, the light. Right? Yeah, lighted her to come close. Again, it's like, it's almost like a light which suggests danger, beckoning. It's like signaling. Yeah. Signaling with a danger, a kind of a light which signifies danger. And took up a jewel from the table, tried its effect upon her fair young bosom and against her pretty brown hair. So maybe you would remember this scene in the movie. Picking up a jewel and giving it to Estella. Yeah, your own one day, my dear, and you will use it well. Let me see you play cards with this boy. Literally, it's very symbolic. He says, just play with his life, right? Yeah, not play cards, but play with his life. Exactly, planting seeds of, vanity also, Reverend, right? Vanity and, revenge. Yeah, planting the seed, as you very correctly said. And also you can see that manipulating Pip as well. Not only manipulating Estella, not only guiding Estella, but also manipulating Pip. Because then Pip thinks, right, all of these things would be hers one day. Yeah, that idea. So planting this idea of greed there as well. Yes. And with this boy, why he is a common laboring boy, extremely insulting, right? Again, you can refer to your assessment, the idea of class. So I thought I overheard Miss Havisham answer. Only it seemed so unlikely. So here what you can see is people always kind of, he could have realized what is happening. But he becomes blind to all this, deliberately becoming blind. And you can say that he doesn't take notes of what is happening. Yeah, he doesn't note all these things or doesn't notice, deliberately becoming ignorant. Self-imposed blindness, you can say, in Pip. You can break his heart, so literally, a literal, very direct reference to it, right? Breaking heart. So she's avenging on the male gender. The sad part is she's using this little boy fight who has no connection to it at all. What do you play, boy? Asked Estella of myself with the greatest disdain. What is disdain, reverence? Both disgust and insult. Disgust and insult. Yeah, nothing but beggar my neighbor, miss. Beggar him, said Miss Havisham to Estella. So we sat down to cards. So why is it symbolic, Reverend, the word beggar? So begging is this, trick of playing cards. Sort of a game here. Begging, but beggar him. So beggar is usually, who is a beggar, right? Belonging to this very lower class, beggar. And it's almost like, beggar him. There's this literally device of pun. We discussed about pun, right? So a word may sound like something, but then it has this different idea as well. So beggar here, it's like that. So beggar directly refers to this card game, but symbolically it refers to this, just, disdain him. Yeah, make him feel like a beggar. Yeah, that is also there. Yes. And then I would be just reading out, Reverend, otherwise we won't be able to finish this. Yeah, if we finish this chapter, then you have ample time to study, because you have this, not this Wednesday, next Wednesday, right? So do you have this chapter called It Was Then I Began to Understand? Yeah. If I'm reading anything that is not there in your book, let me know, right? It was then I began to understand that everything in the room had stopped. So literally stagnation. Yeah, everything is stopped. Like the watch and the clock. You may write down, Reverend, stagnation. Can you remember the meaning of stagnation, Reverend? Reverend Andasiri, he taught you the meaning that day. Stagnation? Yes. That means something is kind of, is very stilled without moving. Yeah. And a long time ago, yes. Like the watch and the clock. Not only the watch and the clock, but everything is like, it is immobile, not moving, right? Yeah. I noticed that Miss Havisham put down the jewel exactly on the spot from which she had taken it up. So in a way, kind of an OCD as well, because people always, OCD, right? Obsessive compulsion disorder. So most people think that it is like, being extra clean, extremely clean, and being obsessed with cleanliness. No, it is not. Right? Can be on one hand, yes, that is the most kind of, generalized case. But also here you can see, put down the jewel exactly on the spot from which she had taken it up. Right? So this idea of order, yeah, no matter how dirty this place is, right? But she has this idea, if I pick this up, like this point, I have to exactly place at this spot. Something like that. Yeah, with OCD that can happen. And some people have this desire when they kind of, open a doorknob, they want to clean their hands. Right? Yeah, just like that. And to do it in an exactly kind of same manner. Yes, that. No. Right? So, an OCD can be something very, because you were smiling at him. Right? No, that can be something very, generalized. Right? Yeah. People won't identify it as OCD, but can be, and again, these are not like mental illnesses. Right? But here you can see that she is a kind of a classic case of all these mental issues. Right? Yeah. And as Extra dealt the cards, I glanced at the dressing table again and saw that the shoe upon it, once white, now yellow, had never been worn. Is that part there, Reverence? Yes. Yeah, so that means, she is only wearing one shoe. The other shoe is not worn. And it's like, because it may be a symbol of her loneliness. She was about to get married, but she was, alone. Because of that, she's not wearing both the shoes. Only one shoe, maybe to suggest her loneliness. And also it shows that she doesn't move anywhere, right? That is also shown, because only with Pip that she moves. Yeah. And I glanced down at the foot from which the shoe was absent and saw that the silk stocking on it, once white, now yellow, had been trodden, ragged. That means she has, it is now ragged, that stocking. That means it is very old. Right? Yeah. Without the arrest of everything, the standing still of all the pale, decayed objects. So it's like her mentality, pale and decay. Not even the withered bridal dress on the collapsed form could have looked so like grave cloths, or the long veil so like a shroud. So what is a shroud, Reverend? Which is placed upon a dead body. The white cloth which is placed upon a dead body, shroud. And also grave clothes, again similar. Grave, you know, right? Graveyard, yeah.
Veil is used to protect our face.
Veil, Reverend, yes. So veil is also used with, brides, but mostly nowadays they don't do that. But these Western brides, they wear, right? Like ninja. Okay. And then, yes, a long veil, so like a shroud. So it literally says she's figuratively dead. Right? Figurative death, you may write down. All these ideas, grave, clothes, shroud, all these show that. Figurative death, Reverend. Figurative is there somewhere, I have written it. Yeah, symbolic. Yes. So she said corpse like. Again, right? Look dead. She literally looks dead. And as we played at cards, is there reference?
Yeah,
That
yes.
part, yeah. The frillings and trimmings on her bridal dress looking like earthy paper. I knew nothing then of the discoveries that are occasionally made of bodies buried in ancient times which fall to powder in the moment of being distinctly seen. But I have often thought since that she must have looked as if the admission of the natural light of day would have struck her to dust. So it is good that he doesn't know about how what happens with the dead bodies, that they are kind of decaying. If he knew that, he would have been more afraid, right? But here he thinks that if natural light strikes her, she would have decayed to dust. Yeah, that much decayed here, even without an awareness of what happens to dead bodies. That's what he literally says. He guesses that she would disappear into thin air like dust. He calls the names Jax, this boy, said Estella with disdain. Disdain, right? We discussed about the contempt. Before our first game was out, and what coarse hands he has, and what thick boots. Again, it is very relevant to your assessment. He calls the names Jax. Again, shows class. Because lower class people call these cards jacks, but upper class call these cards nails. Yeah, there you can see again class difference. He doesn't know about all these things. That's why I told you that he's introduced to this upper class in this chapter. Yeah. And what coarse hands. So he has never thought of his hands in that way. He says that I had never thought of being ashamed of my hands before. It's just perfectly normal hands, but I began to consider them a very indifferent pair. So he now hates his own hands, right? Yeah. And also his boots, right? Yeah, thick boots. And her contempt for me was so strong that it became infectious, and I caught it just like a fever. It becomes infectious. It becomes kind of communicable, almost contagious. It becomes contagious, everyone. Very good. And I caught it, so he catches this cold, right? Yeah, it's like that. She won the game and I dealt. I misdealt. So what is the idea here? As was only natural when I knew she was lying in wait for me to do wrong. So she wants him to be defeated. Let her win. Yeah. And she denounced me, condemned me. Denounced means condemned. Yeah. Yes. Me for a stupid, clumsy, laboring boy. So very much class conscious. He becomes class conscious at this moment. He becomes very self-critical. And also very self-conscious and self-critical. Yeah. You say nothing of her, remarked Miss Havisham to me as she looked on. She says many hard things of you, yet you say nothing of her. What do you think of her? So literally taking out his idea. Pippi is not saying this. So you can see how Miss Havisham is playing as the mediator, right? Mediator between Pip and Estella. Mediator between Pip and Estella. Throughout. But during the last moment, their last meeting, you can see how Pip becomes very direct, right? Yeah. So there he kind of, to an extent, he has some power at that scene. Yeah. Only during that moment. Yes. And then, yeah, so he's misdealing. And then she's kind of, you can say she's manipulating Pip, and also he's letting her win. And you can see this throughout. This is very much foreshadowing. Letting her win. Yeah, he does that. Even after everything happens with Magwitch, after Magwitch is dead, he's asking whether Stella can get that money. Not him, because he's like the owner, which is named by Magwitch. So he does that. So there you can see, no matter there are different I would say negative characteristics in Pip's character. He can be snobbish, right? He can be weak. All these are true. But again, you can see that his goodness is hidden somewhere in his character. Yeah. And yes. I don't like to say I stammered. Stammering, right? Stammering. It's like this difficulty of speaking, unable to speak. Yeah. Saying the same letter again and again. Yeah. Struggling to speak. Tell me in my ear, said Miss Havisham, bending down. I think she's very proud, I replied in a whisper. So here you can see that this is his first interpretation. Anything else, I think she's very pretty. So class has struck him first. Before her beauty, it is the fact that she's proud. Anything else, I think she's very insulting. She was looking at me that with a look of supreme aversion. Aversion means dislike, reverence. Supreme aversion, yeah, with extreme dislike. Anything else? I think I should like to go home and never see her again, though she is so pretty. I'm not sure that I shouldn't like to see her again, but I should like to go home now. You can see very childlike, not exactly childlike, he's a child. So his, very childish mentality, you can see that he is almost traumatized. You shall go soon, said Miss Havisham aloud. Play the game out. Saving for the one weird smile at first, I should have felt almost sure that Miss Havisham's face could not smile. So she's not smiling. That's why I told that she's a classic case of depression, unable to smile. Yeah. It had dropped into a watchful and a brooding expression. Is that part there, Reverence? Might be not, right? No. Okay. So after where does that start?
You shall go soon, said Miss Havisham aloud. Play the game out. I played the game to an end with Estella.
Right. Okay, Reverend, right. I played the game to an end with Estella and she beggared me. Again, beggared is this loaded word, right? There's this pun. She threw the cards down on the table when she had won them all, as if she despised them for having been one of me. She has won, but the fact that she had to play with him, she's kind of despising that fact. She's angry about that fact. One of me. Yeah, it's not like that Pip has won, Estella has won, but she has won against Pip. So when shall I have you here again, said Miss Havisham. Let me think. I was beginning to remind her that today was Wednesday when she checked me with her former impatient movement of the fingers. That means again, she's nervous when she speaks. There, I know nothing of days of the week. I know nothing of weeks of the year. Literally, life has stopped for her. Come again after 6 days, you hear? Yes, ma'am. Estella, take him down. Let him have something to eat and let him roam and look about him while he eats. Go, Pip. Again, manipulating Pip. Literally letting Estella kind of, make him observe the surroundings. So that means to give him an idea of the class, right? And why do you think she's not choosing Herbert Pocket to avenge on the male gender? From the same class, Reverend. And not that she is kind of, very, I would say, kind towards male from her own class, but she knows that males from her own class cannot be deceived or manipulated like people, because this wealth and all these things are like nothing much for them. They have already seen all these, right? When he chooses someone from this lower class, it is easier for her to play her own game. That's why she is choosing someone like that. Yeah, very good, your observation. And then I followed the candle down the light as I had followed the candle up. So there you can see, always been guided by Estella. She stood it in the place where he had found it until she opened the side entrance again, coming in and out from the side entrance. I had fancied, without thinking about it, that it must necessarily be night time, because literally inside this satis house, it's always like the night time. You cannot differentiate between day and night inside the satis house. That is the idea here. It must necessarily be night time. And then what happens? The rush of the daylight quite confounded me. Confounded means confused. Yeah, it confuses. Daylight confuses me. What is the symbolic idea here, everyone? Made me feel as if I had been in the candlelight of the strange room many hours. Now the daylight confuses him. Why? Now he's so used to the darkness, right? So it's not like he's afraid of light. When you are kind of, too used to the darkness, yeah, you feel disturbed by the light. Have you ever experienced migraine? Then there's this headache called migraine. I used to have it when I was in grade 8, right? So it's like, you want to be in darkness. Why? Because light can harm you. Yeah, light will, yes, light will give you headaches. Yeah, so something like that. And what is that kind of symbolic of reverence? It is very much symbolic here.
The first one, he feel ashamed of his class.
Yes, Reverend. And also now he is kind of, he's used to the darkness.
Getting used to that.
He's getting used to this idea of this upper class. Yeah, he feels more comfortable with the upper class, and also the real world seems unreal for him, seems surreal for him. He's confused by the natural world, right? Yeah, so that's the idea, the figurative idea. Now he's used to this darker, yeah. He's about to change. Very good, a very good observation. So the change starts from this chapter. You may write it as well, Reverend. Change. His life is going to change literally. And he's starting to hate reality. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. Mission is completed, Reverend. Miss Havisham, yes. The forever miss. And you are to wait here, you boys, said Estella, and disappeared and closed the door. Again, you can see waiting. Again, very figurative. You may highlight that word, waiting, the verb waiting, or the action of waiting. That's what she makes him do, right? Throughout the story, both Miss Havisham and Estella, they make him wait. So he's forever need to wait to be a gentleman. He's always waiting to be a gentleman, waiting to climb the social ladder. So I think somewhere you have written this, climbing the social ladder. So that idea is very important. Climbing the social ladder. So he is always desperate to do this. Always in this need of climbing the social ladder. So that always happens with him. Climbing the social ladder, and he is always waiting to do that with his great expectations. And I took the opportunity of being along in the courtyard to look at my coarse hands and my common boots. Right? So he has never identified his hands or boots as coarse and common before, but now he does. Again, very related to your assessment. My opinion of these accessories was not favorable. So it's not favorable now. It's not in kind of a positive light now. They had never troubled me before, see? Right? So up to now it was all okay, but they troubled me now. Is that part there, Reverend? No.
Not there.
Alright, okay. So we are.
She came back.
Right, okay. With some bread and meat and a little mug of beer, she put the mug down on the stones of the yard and gave me the bread and meat without looking at me, as insolently as if I were a dog in disgrace. That part is there, right? Dog in disgrace, you may highlight that. What is that literary technique? There you can see, Reverend. Animalizing. Yes, animal imagery. Very correct. Oh, animalizing. Just the opposite of humanizing. Animalizing is happening there. So she is treating him as if he was a dog. Literally. Very much of disdain. I was so humiliated, hurt, spurned. Spurned means, reverence? Refused. Offended, angry, sorry. I cannot hit upon the right name for the smart. God knows what its name was. The tears started to my eyes. So he cannot even describe his feelings, right? That much hurt. And now he starts crying. The moment they sprang there, the girl looked at me with a quick delight in having been the cause of them. So what does that say about Estella's psychological condition or the mental condition, Reverend? Deriving happiness from causing others sadness, right? Deriving happiness. This is kind of a mental illness. Yeah, deriving
Especially
happiness.
serial killers, they
Yes.
have this feel.
Yes, Reverend. So there you can see, even though she's a child, we cannot exactly say that she has this mental condition, but you can see how, to what extent, deriving happiness from hurting others. So you can see how much she is manipulated by Miss Havisham. Yeah. And then I was, the moment they sprang there, so she's very happy about causing him tears. This gave me power to keep them back to and look at her. And again, you can see it arms Pip with power as well. Right? Yeah. Pip also thinks that I need to be powerful. Otherwise, I would be kind of, manipulated by them. But then he fails to do so. He fails to be powerful throughout the book, even though he starts thinking about it at this moment, being powerful. So she gave a contemptuous, that means a scornful toss, but with a sense I thought of having made too sure that I was so wounded and left me. But she is very aware that she has wounded him right now, right? Okay. But when she was gone, I looked about me for a place to hide my face. And is that part there, Reverence?
Yes.
Yeah. And got behind one of the gates in the brewery lane and leaned my sleeve against the wall there, leaned my forehead on it and cried. So you can see how hurt he is. As I cried, I kicked the wall and took a hard twist at my hair. So bitter were my feelings and so sharp was the smart without a name. They needed counteraction. So what is he doing? He's taking his frustration out of him. Right? Yeah. So frustration, you can see. Frustration, and also just like Miss Havisham, what is he doing? Hurting himself. Frustration is there. And also to take out that frustration, he is hurting himself. Taking the frustration on him. Usually that's how people, good people who are inherently good, they take their frustration on themselves, not hurting the others. Most of the people would kind of, take their frustration, kind of, venting out their anger on the others. Yeah, that's what happens with most of the people. But when you are kind of very sensitive, you would not do that, right? It's good that, not to take, out frustration either on the others or oneself. The best thing would be to balance it out. But, people would not be able to do that most of the time. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. But when she was gone, we discussed that part. My sister's bringing up had made me sensitive. Is that part there, Reverend? No.
I got rid of my injured feeling for the time.
For the time by taking him into the
I got rid of my injured feelings.
Let me see. Alright, okay. I got rid of my injured feelings. That part, Reverend? Yeah. By kicking them into the brewery bowl. So he thinks now he's satisfied. Self-punishing. Self-punishment, if you want, you may write down. Self-punishing for someone else's fault. He's punishing himself. Self-punishing. Yeah. Twisting them out of my hair. So he's literally, picking out his hair. And then I smoothed my face with my sleeve and came behind the gate. Now he's kind of relieved after venting out his anger, which is kind of good for him anyway, without kind of, bottling it up. You know the word bottling up? Bottling up emotions. That means you are not venting out your emotions, you are keeping them inside. Bottling up. So he is not bottling up here at this point. Later, so I will clean this board. Otherwise, you have to research the whole board to find out the necessary word. Bottling up and venting out. Bottling up means you are keeping your emotions inside. Venting out means you are, bottling up and venting out, Reverend. These are like antonyms. Bottling up means you are keeping your emotions inside. Venting out means you are kind of literally giving out your emotions. Can be crying. Venting out. You are kind of, directly or very visibly showing your emotions. Where were we? Yes. The bread and meat were acceptable and the beer was warming and tingling, and I was soon in spirits to look about me. Right? So kind of he's recovering in a way. And is there this part called to be sure? It was a deserted place. That means it is kind of an abandoned place. Yeah, without life, literally a lifeless place. Down to the pigeon house in the brewery yard. Yeah, which had been blown crooked on its pole. Pole is like, like a long wood stick. Yeah, pole. Long wood pole by some high wind. And would have made the pigeons think themselves at sea. So here you can see Pip's imagination. He concocts stories. Concocts means he's like creating, concocts. Creating stories, concocting tales. Yeah. So he thinks that, the pigeon's house, like the pigeons would have think that like they are in the sea. Pigeons think themselves at sea. If there had been any pigeons, they are to be rocked by it. There are no pigeons, but you can see his imagination, right? Yeah. And then, but there were no pigeons in the dovecot. Dovecot again is the place that, pigeons are kept, doves are kept. No horses in the stable, no pigs in the sty, no malt in the storehouse, no smells of grain and beer in the copper or the vat. So what do all these things say, reverends? The place is empty, literally, right? Yeah. All the uses and scents of the brewery might have evaporated. Evaporated means it's like, gave off, it has disappeared. That part is not there, reverence. Maybe not. Okay, what is the next part that you have?
Behind the fruits, behind the
Furthest end of the brewery?
Yeah.
Okay. Was a rank garden with an old wall. Not so high, but that I could struggle up and hold on long enough to look over it and see that the rank garden was the garden of the house. It was overgrown with tangled weeds. So, what has happened to the garden? There are weeds in it. Weeds, right? Unwanted plants. Yeah. And tangled. And also, those are tangled. That means this is not looked after. Right? Not maintained. The garden is not maintained. Just like her life, that you have to maintain your life, can be academically, can be spiritually, can be physically, but not in kind of, any way her life is maintained. And yes, but that there was a track upon the green and yellow paths, as if someone sometimes walked there, and that Estella was working away from me even then, but she seemed to be everywhere. What is the idea here? Walking away from me even then. So unreachability, right? Just like a phone can be unreachable, right? Estella is unreachable, and her name itself suggests it. Unreachability of Estella. Say unreachability. Even then, but she seemed to be everywhere. So her presence is very much felt, right? Even though how much she is unreachable, Pip is always surrounded by her, right? Yeah. Yeah, okay. And then the temptation presented by the casks, is that part there, Reverend? Yeah. And began to walk on them. I saw her walking on them at the end of the yard of casks. She had her back towards me and held her pretty brown hair spread out in her two hands. Is that part still there? Okay. And then, yes. I never looked round and passed out of my view directly. So in the brewery itself, by which I mean the large paved lofty place in which they used to make the beer, is that part still there? Yeah. The brewing utensils still were. When I first went into it and rather oppressed by its gloom, stood near the door looking about me, I saw her pass among the extinguished fires and ascend some light iron stairs and go out by a gallery high overhead as if she was going into the sky, right? Again you can see. So here you can see that he is looking around the place, right, in this brewery place, and by the casks. So casks, let me show you casks. It's like a barrel. Yeah, like this. Large barrels like this to keep all these things, right? To store, can be beer. Yeah, yes. To store liquids, and began to walk on them. I saw her walking on them at the end of the yard of casks, right? And also you can say Estella is also very much isolated, don't you think so? She's right only on her own with Miss Havisham, right? There can be servants, but when it comes to, she doesn't have anyone to play, right? Not like a usual child. Yeah, not like a child, literally. And then she had her back towards me and held her pretty brown hair spread out in her two hands and never looked round and passed out of my view directly. Again, unreachability, right? Appears and disappears. So you can see this with Estella most of the time, appearing and disappearing and reappearing. And yeah, so in the brewery itself, by which I mean the large paved lofty means kind of like height, Reverend, right? A place in which they used to make the beer, where the brewing utensils means instruments still were. So still the instruments are there, but brewing is not happening. So that means nothing is moving in this house, right? Everything is immobile, stagnated. And when I first went into it and rather oppressed by its gloom, so he's oppressed by this gloomy, the dark shade, right? stood near the door looking about me. I saw her pass among the extinguished fires. Extinguished means put out fires. Fires are no longer there. Yes, and ascend some light iron stairs, move some light iron stairs, and go out by a gallery high overhead as if it were going out into the sky. Again, sky and Estella, because Estella means the star, right? So very symbolic. And it is, what is the next paragraph, Reverend? It was in this place and at this moment that a strange thing happened to my fancy. So it's almost like very gothic here. I thought it is a strange thing, then I thought it's a strange thing long afterwards. I turned my eyes a little dimmed by looking up at the frosty light towards a great wooden beam in a low nook of the budding near. Great wooden beam means like a piece of a wood, low nook of the building near on my right hand. I saw a figure hanging there by the neck, as if a person is taking its own life, right? Yeah, a person hanging down by the neck. So he sees this like kind of a fancy, kind of a gothic element, can be a ghostly element here, right? Yeah. And the writers also had this urge to, I told you, incorporate ghostly elements. There were ghosts in most of these stories. Yeah. If you like, all these ghost stories, horror stories, Victorian period was the time to be born in. Right? Yeah. Even I like to read and watch all this horror stuff, no matter, it's not kind of, nice and pleasant to watch. But to have this kind of tendency to experience such things, right? To kind of, like not to meet ghosts, but again to experience that
To get that
feeling, exactly, heart races and all these things, yeah. And the readership those days liked that feeling. That's why all these things were incorporated. A figure all in yellow white, and who do you think that he's seen with but only one shoe to the feet? It hung so that I could see that the faded trimmings of the dress were like earthy paper, and the face was Miss Havisham's. That part is not there, Reverend. It is there, right? Yeah. So he has this fancy, and also you can see that this is a child and his mind is disturbed by seeing all these, unreal things. And with a movement going over the whole countenance as if she was trying to call into me. In the terror of seeing the figure and in the terror of being certain that it had not been there a moment before, I at first ran from it and then ran towards it. So he is trying to comprehend whether this is true or not. And my terror was greatest of all when I found no figure there. Maybe this is happening because it is like a kind of a hallucination that he sees because his mind is disturbed. Maybe that, right? Yeah. And what is the next sentence, Reverend? Yes, nothing less than the frosty light of the cheerful sky, the sight of people passing beyond the bars of the courtyard gate. That means outside the world is happening, right? Yeah. And the reviving influence of the rest of the bread and meat and the beer could have brought me round. Even with those shades, I might not have come to myself as soon as I did. That means he's petrified, he's terrified. But that I saw Estella approaching with the keys to let me out. So always Estella is the one holding keys to his life, right? She would have some fair reason for looking down upon me, I thought, if she saw me frightened, and she should have no fair reason. Even though she doesn't have any fair reason to insult him, look down upon him, right? So people always thinks it is her right to insult him, right? With class that she owns that right, that idea. Okay. So it's 11:30. We have 5 minutes, right? We can finish. She gave me a triumphant glance, like a victorious glance in passing me. Glance means this look, victorious look, as if she rejoiced that my hands were so coarse and my boots were so thick. That means the fact that she belongs to the higher class, the upper class, but he does not. That idea, right? Yeah. And she rejoices at the thought of class distinction. She opened the gate, she stood holding it. I was passing out without looking at her when she touched me with a taunting head. Taunting means reproaching in a sarcastic manner, like blaming in a sarcastic manner. Yes, taunting hand. Scornful in a way, yes, Reverend. Why don't you cry? The best word would be reproach. Why don't you cry? He's asking, right? Because I don't want to. So he is trying to get some agency there. Agency, you know, right? Agency means you are trying to get some sort of an independence, some sort of a power there, autonomy. So these two words, if
I expect him to cry.
cry, but he is trying to kind of, you know, have some agency, autonomy. Means power, reference, some sort of a power to himself. And then, yes. She laughed. You have been crying till you were half blind and you are near crying again now. But she's keeping being kind of, you know, insulting. She laughed contemptuously, again with contempt, pushed me out and locked the gate upon me. I went straight to Mr. Pumblechook's and was immensely relieved to find him not at home. So that means, you know, he's happy about it because Mr. Pumblechook is again not this nice person. So leaving word with the shopman on what day I was wanted at Miss Havisham's again, I set off on the 4-mile walk to our forge, pondering as I went along all I had seen and deeply revolving that I was a common labouring boy. So this stays in his mind. My hands were coarse, my boots were thick. He's repeating this. That I had fallen into a despicable habit. Despicable means hating. So you can see self-hatred here. Calling names checks that I was much more ignorant than I had considered myself last night, and generally that I was in a low-lived bad way. So this idea of class, again, very much relevant to your assessment. So Mr. Havisham's plan is blooming now, right? Of avenging male gender. Right, reference. We will call it a day with it. And we will definitely finish Great Expectations this Friday. And we will try to finish the note as well. Then we can have, no, we don't have this class on Monday. So we will meet next Friday, and after that for the assessment, Wednesday, hopefully, yes. And then we will try to do something from modern literature. Yeah. There's some poems. Okay, reverends, you may leave, otherwise you would miss your lunch. And also I will make sure to